don't know if you know this, they're not just handing out money for doing no work anymore.
Isn't that what the lottery is for?
I guess that is. I mean, that's work. You have to walk into a gas station.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we have the credit card things at the pump now to where we could just avoid all that nastiness.
Sure.
I have to go in there
But
and
you
get
got
a
to
lottery.
earn the money to buy the lottery ticket, I guess.
God, it's a vicious cycle. Welcome to the Camo and Hooks podcast. This is Mike.
And this is Luke.
Hey, Luke, guess what? I'm real tired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to use this as a bragging moment.
Oh, no. I got nothing to brag about. What would I ever?
You do have something to brag about in that you got drawn to hunt at Lake Georgetown. I did not.
That's true, but that's not something I accomplished. That's something I got literally drawn. Like, we were just joking about the lottery before we started. Mm-hmm. Like, that's literally what I did is I entered the lottery and got picked. Yeah, we'll get that grumble out there. I know there's many more coming, but so Luke and I both put in for the backstory here is if you're not a hunter in Texas, you may not understand. We have very, very little public land in Texas.
Very little.
Like 2% or less of the total land area of Texas is public land. Compare that to some places out west where it's like 20, 30, 40% of their land or more is public land. We don't have that much. And one of the things that we have near us here in Central Texas is Lake Georgetown, which is like 20 minutes up the road. We have Lake Georgetown, which is basically a dam put up on the San Gabriel River, and it's managed by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers.
Yep.
And they have kind of a drawn hunt management program. They have to manage the whitetails out there, and the way that they choose to do that is it's a lottery draw, basically. You go in, and it's archery only because you're near a lot of parks. It's a relatively narrow band of park and hunting area surrounding the lake, so they don't want rifle hunting.
Right, they got people out on the lake, they got camping grounds all around there, so there's rifle hunting is not ideal. Not
a good idea, yeah. So you do this lottery draw. You actually have to go into the project's office, sign up. We both did that, and I happened to get drawn. I happened to get picked for it.
I'm so happy for you.
I know. I understand. I can hear it in your voice. I hear the sincere happiness in your voice.
Sincere happiness.
Sincere happiness. So that was the last couple of days. The reason I'm so tired is I went out and I set up my stand. I set up my stand and my camera, and I had some choices to make when I first wanted to set everything up. I looked at it. So
let's see. First, when you got notified of the draw, right, that you were drawn, are you given any restrictions as to where you can put your stuff?
Absolutely, yes. And the tricky part is that there's 100 hunters out there, or 100 hunter groups, but most of them are individuals. But there's 100 of them out there. 50 of them, by the way, as we know, are already in because they last year met the requirement by getting a doe, but they didn't get a buck. And what they're trying to do really is manage does, but a lot of hunters want bucks. So
you got to take a doe before you can take a buck.
Right. So these guys, that 50 or so, they took does, but they didn't get bucks. So they just get exempted and in next year. They're in no matter what. So knowing that and that you have, it's not the smallest lake in the world, but it's certainly not the biggest.
Sure.
And 100 stands out there is going to be pretty significant. So the restrictions they have is you got to be 100 yards from any trails, any parks, any campsites, and 100 yards clearance from any other hunter's equipment.
Okay.
That last one's really the trickiest because there's plenty of places where you can look on there and say, yeah, I got plenty of room to set up there, but everybody else is looking at those same spots too.
Sure.
So that was when we sat down and looked at the map. I tried to think in the most obvious terms of where are the lazy guys going to go?
Sure.
I know that's negative sounding, and I know there's a lot of hardworking hunters, but where are the lazy guys going first? Where are the guys that have maybe done it a bunch, already know their spot, or the guys who just want to make it as quick and easy as possible, get in and out? It's 104 right now outside.
Yeah.
We're in the middle of it.
Because you're not going to be able to drive in and get your deer.
Correct.
You got to haul that sucker out of there.
That's right. So the way I thought of it was, however I get my feeder and however I get my stand and everything in there is how I got to get the deer out.
Yeah.
It's the same path. I'm going to be carrying something along that. So I had to think about that as well. But yeah, I didn't want to go the lazy route. I didn't want to look at it that way. So that was a big part of along with just trying to find a good spot. So, there's a lot that goes into that. Now, I will say I got incredibly fortunate. We went out, I guess it was just a couple of days ago now. I went out with my wife and my son. They just wanted to kind of go out and have an adventure because it's summertime. Kids are out of school. So we went out just to kind of explore. But before that, we did some scouting. We looked at the map. And when I looked at the map, I realized that there's some areas that were pretty far from camps, pretty far from trails, but they were closer to the primitive camping areas, which I don't know if anybody's not familiar. Primitive camping is where you don't have the pull-up driveway pad, you don't have water, you don't have power, and like a picnic area. Yeah. It's just basically you're going out there, you've got a spot that's assigned to you, there might be a picnic table, and then that's it. You're going out, you're taking you're responsible for yourself more or less. So they were closer to the primitive camping areas, which are already lower traffic.
Right.
Think about how many times you've really signed up to go primitive camping, especially with the family. We're in a family way, so that's not until they're older, not something we're really going to be doing. So those are pretty low traffic to begin with, but you have to hike into those. Those aren't just, you drive up and park and walk a little ways down. There's not a close by parking lot.
There's like a parking lot, and then you get all your stuff and you carry it all in there.
You hike in. Like it's legitimately like 3/4 of a mile or a mile hike to this particular one. So when I looked at that, I realized like, okay, that's one way I could park and hike in, get a wagon, anything like that, and go all the way in. But also realizing I got to take the deer out if I get it that way.
Right.
Or maybe 2 deer if I get them that way, right?
Yeah.
Those are big dreams. I looked on the map and realized that there was a park that was pretty close in proximity to it, but it was across the San Gabriel. Okay. So I looked on the map, it looked pretty significant. It looked like it was a big chunk of water, but it looked like it was probably, it looked like it was less than half a mile. Okay. To get across. And luckily when I got there and looked at it was way less. So I just the water level when you're looking at Google Maps is way different than what it is in summer in Texas.
Exactly.
It's way different. So it was a pretty decent cross. So what I did is I grabbed an inflatable kayak. Okay. And we took the family, all 3 of us went across. It's a 2-seater. We managed to sneak the 9-year-old in there pretty well.
Yeah.
We joked about this. It's got a 400-pound capacity. And we were trying to do the math. And I'm like, maybe we could go fishing together. Can we?
As long as we don't take anything else or catch any fish.
Or move left to right.
Right. The 2 of us might stay buoyant in this boat.
We can go out and float and enjoy the landscape for a while. But yeah, so we got all 3 of us in there. We went across the San Gabriel, landed near the primitive camping area, and we hiked in and started looking. Luckily, my son is really good at finding sign. He's really good at finding deer sign. I guess closer to the ground, not much though. It's huge, but he can find. He even knows what to look for like bedding areas. He knows how to look for highways, like where the deer. Like he's really good at it. So it was nice to have him. My wife is super smart, smarter than me by a long sight, so she can really think on the fly very fast. So we got in, found a couple of spots, and then we finally found what I think is the spot, which is not too far from the primitive camp, which I like. Because critters tend to hang out near where humans have been.
Sure.
Garbage. we leave a lot of that.
Unfortunately,
Yeah, we'll leave food behind. So there was a lot of sign. There were good ways in and out for the deers. Deers? Yeah, they were pretty covered where they would want to eat. It's kind of like, it's almost like what you envision when you think about a spot. You think like a kind of a circular clearing that's got brush buildup with ways in and out, small ways, a little bit of vegetation in the middle, and a place to set up a stand and a place to set up the feeder, and they feel safe when they're in there. They feel like they're covered from all sides. Deer just like to be covered from one side with their feeding, sleeping, anything like that. So it's a good, safe looking area.
It's like when I eat at a restaurant, I like my back to the wall.
Right. That way, if you're at the Golden Corral, you can see who your competition to get to the buffet is.
Exactly.
Who's gonna get those dinner rolls before me?
Well, also with your back to the wall, you can see when the prime rib comes back out.
Oh, smart.
Yeah.
So you don't get the stuff that's been out there for 4 hours. You get the fresh stuff, man.
Exactly.
That is some next level stuff. You see, I've always said there's a parallel between hunting and buffet eating, and finally, you have made the connection for me.
Well, if you're hunting a feeder, right? It goes off at a set time.
Shoot, that's the prime rib.
A couple of times a day.
That's the fresh prime rib.
That's when they refresh the buffet.
So you're looking for those guys to come run. See, we got this figured out finally. Hunting is a buffet. So we found it was a great spot. So we had to kayak back across the river.
So did you just mark that with your phone?
Yeah, and honestly, like
How did people do stuff before phones?
I don't know. And you know what? Interestingly, you'll see at the end of this little tale of adventure here, like that it became easy after a while. Didn't need a marker. I could go walk it there right now. But yeah, I did originally. But we had no coverage, so the marker didn't take on my phone. I didn't realize. So, but I took the family back across. They went to go get the girls from daycare. It was getting midday at that point. So I stayed behind, took a dip in the lake real quick because, oh my God, it was hot.
So hot.
Yeah. Just pounding water, eating handfuls of trail mix because I'm just hungry and thirsty immediately after all this. And so I load up. I get my feeder, just 40 pounds of corn. I didn't want to take like 80, 120 pounds of just because I kind of knew.
Yeah.
I'll come back later.
We got to put it all on the boat. You got to haul it all in there.
It's like that. Ashley, my wife, like made the point. This is kind of like that old riddle where like there's a man and his two sons. The father's 200 pounds, the sons are 100, but the boat can only hold 300 pounds. So I really had to do some of this, and like the capacity of this boat was 400 pounds. So luckily we didn't push up on that very much, but I did have to think about weight and everything. So I loaded that stuff up, got the feeder, and I put all the legs and stuff inside of that. So obviously it'd be great to lose one on the kayak, lose the legs, and just be now I just have to start over. So loaded the corn in, paddled my way across. That was the calmest the water was, thankfully, at that time. So landed on the other side, hauled that feeder all the way up there on my shoulders, carried in front of me, whichever way I could figure out to do. Wasn't the most comfortable, but I got out to the spot, set up that and the camera. Then I had to get back down to the boat and get the bag of corn. Grab the bag of corn, carry that all the way in, fill that up, turn the camera on, program the feeder. Out of water by that point.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So I took my son's hydration system. Apparently he is a camel and he drank nearly drank like a liter and a half being out there like less than 2 hours, 2 hours or so he was out there. Like he just sucked it down. I was like, okay, well this is how I die. It was hot, man. It was like 102. So I got it all set up, and by the time I'd done all those trips up and down, I knew exactly where to go. I could walk out there right now and tell you where my spot is. Okay. Just because you get that pattern recognition, and it's so cool. You can tell, like, something in me is programmed to get this.
Sure.
If I walk this same path and go to this same spot where something important is, something in me in this computer is meant to, like, show me, okay, that fallen tree right there, you go right here. Here's what it looks like.
Now, you have to remember, it's going to look completely different in November.
Absolutely right. So I did end up marking a GPS thing afterwards just to be sure in the general area, so I have an idea. I can't get the exact spot, but so then at that point I had to jump back in the boat, kayak back across. That was the hardest trip of the day. One, I was tired, I was beat already. There'd been a lot of lifting, a lot of heavy lifting on my own, a lot of dragging the boat, and that was the point at which it was getting to be around 3 o'clock, 3:30 at that point. Yeah, and also a lot of people are out on the lake at that time in their boats. And they're making wakes. They're not waking. If you think about it, I'm launching off a shore across a narrow, and they're not making wakes behind me that are pushing me towards where I'm going. Correct. They're making wakes right in front of me, and I'm fighting over them all the time. There were times I'm just paddling to stay stationary out there, and it's an inflatable. It's temperamental. It doesn't cut through.
Right.
It's just if it's calm, you're going to get it. So finally got back across, and then. Got back in, and I just like did a quick inventory in my head, like, oh God, did you forget anything? And I don't think I did. We're gonna find out when I go to visit. So hopefully in the next week, maybe you can come with me too. But
absolutely,
we go out there, we'll check the trail cam and see, refill the feeder. I'll probably take another couple bags of corn out there at this point. But I'm super stoked, and the reason is that I know that I did something that the lazy hunter is not doing. The amount of work that I had to do and how I felt after I was done. I was beat. If you'd have told me I was just going to do that for no reason, or just, somebody's going to give me $20, I wouldn't have given a shit. I would have just have somebody else do it. Yeah. But I was out there with a purpose. And, you and I, we talk about it all the time. It's like, how cool is it to be out there, outdoors with a purpose?
Yeah.
Like you talk about that with fishing too. Like it's cool to like go on a walk in a park, but if there's a pond, and I can fish while I'm out there, it's a much better reason to be outside.
There you go.
I really believe there's something in us as men, maybe just as humans, that it's way easier to do that than to just go hiking.
Right. Yeah, I don't want to just go on a walk.
Yeah, like that's cool.
No, thank you.
It's better than not. But if I can have a...
Is it though?
I don't know.
It's 100 outside.
When you hit those triple digits, I was about to say, that's when you start to do the worth of things like, oh, maybe I'll just be in a relationship with air conditioning for a while.
Right, exactly. Yeah, you're in that last home stretch. You're halfway back in your kayak, and you're thinking, this is it. I'm done.
Yeah.
I want to quit. But you know what? It's going to result in venison.
Oh, man. And
or at least you've increased your chances.
Increased the chances.
Of getting venison into your freezer, and that makes it all worth it.
And I've got a spot to go have some experiences. And I made that myself, which is cool. So, I mean, this is my first experience, anything close to public land hunting. You know, this is the first thing that I've had, and having to deal with that overcrowding stuff.
Well, what's cool, too, is that, like, it's not like you were invited to hunt somebody else's spot.
Right.
Obviously, you don't own this spot, but... For this deer season, it's your spot.
That's right.
You can set it up however you want. Somebody else doesn't have to show you where to go, where to sit, what to look for.
Yeah.
It's your spot. You get to figure all that out. You get to put your stand wherever you want. You get to put your cam, your feeder, wherever you want.
And do it wrong, maybe.
Within that spot and learn some stuff.
Yeah. And I think you're absolutely right. That is a perfect... I didn't think about that side of it really, that's what's kind of exciting about it, is that I did this.
20 minutes from your house.
20 minutes from the house is also a huge plus.
I mean, people would literally murder to have a hunt stand.
That's kind of what I'm worried about.
20 minutes from their house.
So, okay, and you mentioned this when I first started. I was in the sporting goods store shopping for a feeder, getting everything. I was thinking like, do I need a camera or should I just kind of wait and see what the spot's like? I'm texting with you. And you start telling me these horror stories about people out of Lake Georgetown. Like, what did you tell me?
A buddy of mine used to get this. He used to get drawn for this all the time, and he would go out there. And there's guys who have been hunting out there for 20 years.
Sure.
And, anybody that knows anybody who hunts public land, if you hunt that public land on a regular basis, these people start to feel like it's their spot. I was kind of saying, that's your spot. It's your spot for the season.
I can see how that happens, though, especially if you're one of the people like me that's done a lot of work to get that spot set up.
Yes.
That entitlement could show up.
So these guys, some of these guys who are hunting out there, some of those 50 dudes who hunted out there last year, are going to want the exact same spot they got last year. Mm-hmm. They don't own that spot. There's no reason they should get that spot.
That's not going to stop them from acting like
it. But they 100% believe they should, and they will try to get those spots back. And so my buddy was telling me that he knew when he used to set up, he set up one trail cam facing his feeder and another trail cam looking at his stand because he wanted to see if people were messing with his stuff, because people do this all the time. And he, on his stand cam, he got pictures of dudes. Nobody ended up taking his stuff or messing with his stuff, but they were looking inside his blind and seeing if he had left stuff, or who knows what they were looking for. Yeah. But they were on his spot looking at his stuff. A guy I work with tells a story about his cousins who have been hunting the same spot in public land in Mississippi for 25 years. They found some guy's ground blind on their spot. And they shot it up with their shotguns.
Oh my God.
So when the guy, yeah, exactly. So when the guy returned, his stuff was just all in shreds because they were on his spot, Oh
man.
So you got to watch out for that stuff. Unfortunately, not everybody's, conservation minded, and this belongs to everyone, and we're all public landowners. Not everybody has that same mindset,
right?
Unfortunately,
and that was another motivation. So in the sporting goods store, while I'm doing that, insert sporting goods store sponsor here, as you always say. Mm-hmm. As I'm doing that, I was in the checkout line when you started telling me that, and I went, God damn it, and turned around and went back and got a camera.
Yeah.
Right then. And then I started thinking, like, how do I need to get the second one? I hate to have to think about that kind of stuff, but that's the real world.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Like you said, everybody out there is not the same attitude as me. But that was further motivation for later that night when I scouted to be like, how do I get the hell away from everybody?
Sure.
How do I get to where, because here's the deal. I bet guys that have that mindset are not the same people that have the mindset as, hey, I'd like to kayak 2 miles and hike in another half mile up tough terrain to get to my spot. Exactly. I'm guessing those aren't the same people.
Probably not.
So I'm very, very, I almost don't want to use the word thankful because it's something I've worked for, but the ability that I have I have the physical strength and the fitness to be able to do what I did.
Yeah.
That feels pretty awesome. It does, to know that there are people that just can't do what I did to get their stand out there.
Can't and won't.
Can't and won't. Absolutely right. And I did it by myself.
Yeah.
I didn't need to ask for anybody's help. I was able to do it all. And there is a certain amount of accomplishment to that. And as I told my wife that night, as I was trying to stay awake for another 5 minutes to have a conversation because I was exhausted.
Yeah.
Was how if I get a doe, because I have to first.
Sure.
How good is that going to taste? I don't care if I char it black.
Yeah.
How good is that going to taste?
It's going to be so delicious.
And I'm going to get right in everybody's grill while they eat and go, how is it? Is it good?
Is it good?
Did you enjoy it? Do you know what Daddy had to do for that?
Well, and for you especially, this is good. There's so much. It's your first one.
Yeah.
It's with a bow. Mm-hmm. You put in all this work now. You're going to put in a lot of work when it comes time to haul that sucker out of there.
Put a dead body in a kayak.
Yeah.
And paddle it back
that's
across.
awesome. Like that all that work is going to it's going to sweeten the meat that much more.
Yeah, that is very, very true. Well, it's only summer now, though. So I've got plenty of time to watch and learn and figure out where. I haven't even placed a stand yet because I want to see what happens on the camera.
Yeah, you still got 10 weeks of scouting before the season even opens.
But another good reason to get it out there early. I can start watching now. It's
start
public,
watching those
but
trail cams.
They give you the chance to do that. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked about it. You're still in the lottery draw too, though. Technically,
I am going to go get my archery certification, and I'm going to show up to the orientation, and I'm banking that somebody else will not show up to the orientation. Because there's a mandatory orientation for everybody who got drawn. If you don't show up, you lose your spot.
And then you're in the standby list.
And I am going to be there to vulture one of those spots.
No shame in
if
that.
If somebody doesn't show up.
Yeah. You know what vultures are good at? Getting food and surviving.
Exactly. Well, worst case scenario, I get my archery certification, which is going to force me to practice some more.
Yep.
And I get to go to the orientation and learn about what you guys are getting into and what all is expected and allowed and all that sort of stuff. And maybe I just learn something, even if I don't get a standby spot.
That's the right attitude. I completely dig that. And the IBO test that you do for the archery thing, it's fun. You shoot at 5 targets. No pressure. I got 148 out of 150 possible points. Yeah. So no pressure. I don't want to put any pressure on you on the podcast.
Really? Because you've said pressure like 4 times.
Oh, yeah, I did. It's just, you know what that is? I'm so comfortable with pressure that I can just say it many times without feeling pressure.
Sure.
Without feeling it. And I'm actually really mad at myself because I really don't think it's that hard to ace that 150 out of 150.
Yeah.
It's just one bad shot. So the rings are 10, 8, and 5 points basically.
Yeah.
And it's just one bad shot that I just kind of like, things are going well. Let me just let go of my bow early and look. And what do you know? I went low and left.
There you go.
What weird that I missed that way. But no, it's super fun. I mean, if it didn't cost money, that'd be a fun thing to do to just go practice.
On a regular basis.
But you get to shoot all those cool 3D targets. That's pretty
cool.
Well, cool, man.
Well, good luck to you. I'm excited to hear these stories over the fall.
Yeah, and if you get drawn, like I said, my blind is your blind. That's totally fine. But given what I've said about it, maybe just go set up your own.
Yeah, and if I do get one of those standby spots, stay the hell away from my spot.
Here it comes. I'm going to become one of those cranky, lazy bastards that never wants to move. It's going to be us.
I will hunt your spot, but you are not welcome at mine. That's how that's going to work.
That's the kind of friendship I'm used to. I'm fine with that. All right, we'll talk to y'all next time.
Bye.